Hello, everyone. This is Coach Powell, and I want to welcome you to Coffee, Tea, You, and Me. This is a program I've been doing now for nearly 20 years. And just when COVID hit, we decided to take the show on the road, put it online, make it available for all of the participants all over the world. We have a wide audience and a lot of people who tune in every single week. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're here to experience this opportunity and share it with all of us. Today's show is going to be super, super special. I love today's show because really, when you think about it, all of us want to create meaningful, powerful presentations, no matter what we do, whether we're speaking up extemporaneously for ourselves, whether we're introducing ourselves, or whether we are making sure that we are in the boardroom, the corporate office, we're delivering powerful presentations. As a leader, it is imperative. And so for the next 5 weeks, we're going to be talking about all the elements of how you put together and deliver a powerful presentation, no matter whether it's a long presentation, a short presentation, whatever, how much time you have, it is important that you put your best foot forward. It's important that you do everything you can to be influential, and everything that you need to say is important, word for word. Everything you share, everything you present, everything you create when it comes to delivering powerful presentation is important. Now, I have to tell you, today's program is super special to me for a lot of other reasons than the 5 elements of perfect presentation. The fact is, my daughter recently graduated from Howard University's Theater Arts program, and she's got her BFA in theater administration. And along the way, I've learned a lot about how important it is to deliver a powerful presentation, whether or not you are doing a basic speech or a quick PowerPoint or a long investment program. No matter what you're doing, you're really trying to appeal to the emotions of your audience. You're really trying to appeal to get them to do basically what you want them to do. This is like influence. It's important. Along with everything we teach, it can be used for bad or it can be used for good. What is very difficult to teach is the moral character it's going to take for you to take these lessons and use them for good. So I hope you will use them for good. I hope you'll grow. I hope you create opportunities for other people and yourself. And we're going to try to do the best we can to have a great time today. We're going to spend a few minutes just doing some homework right now. If you haven't already done so, please like the program. Make sure you select everything you need to select to make sure that you can share us to the best of your ability with anybody you want to share with. Notice that today we're going to open the dialogue up to the studio audience. So anybody who wants to ask a question and you want to be on camera, all you have to do is put it in the chat to let me know that this is what you're interested in, and I will make sure that we put you on camera. We invite you to the table. If you don't want to be on camera, that's okay. You can still put your question in the chat. We will try to honor your question as much as possible. And we're going to get to our special program today right after the break. And if you will pay attention just for a few seconds, we'll share with you one of our commercials really quickly, and check it out. Here it is. Okay, boys and girls, I love that little jingle. My buddy put that together for me, and it's a great little opening dialogue. Today's program is brought to you from all of our sponsors, and let me just make sure I let you know who they are and what that's all about, so that, first of all, we are showing gratitude where we need to show gratitude. Now, for those of you who've been following me for the last year, you know that we've covered more than 100 episodes here at the Coffee Tea You and Me channel, right? So everything we've done has been recorded on YouTube, it's been recorded on Facebook, and that's now being recorded on LinkedIn. So you should be able to go back and check out all the past episodes. If you need to interact with something, if you need to share something, feel free to do so. Today's episode, as well as all of the episodes for this year, are already sponsored by a couple of key groups, and I want to make sure I give them the acknowledgement that they deserve, because they are more than deserving. I could not do this without them. The first sponsor I'd like to recognize is Blacks in Government. BIG is one of the largest international organizations that represent African Americans that do government service and every iteration of the term. So it means if you are working for federal government, local government, municipal government, the opportunities for you to share and learn from the programs of BIG is huge. I am one of the co-sponsors and co-presenters of the Now Generation for Blacks in Government, and I really appreciate everything they've done to make sure that our programs are fantastic and they're really, really good. The next sponsor I'd like to represent is, and make sure that you know about, is the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce. This is one of the best chambers that I've ever said that I have a chance to be a part of, to grow with and grow within and from. They co-sponsor all of our events. They co-sponsor a lot of things that we do. And just I'm so excited to be a part of this particular chamber. If there's any other chambers that want to list themselves as one of our sponsors, do me a favor and check out the links below. Make sure you know how to get in contact with me. Let me put that information up for everybody to be able to see. If I could just remember how to do so, and life would be really, really good if I could do that. Hey, there it is. Boom. All right, so you can call me anytime. You can catch me on my text messages right there, screening below. Use the 9-step guru whenever you want to use social media to communicate with me. I promise I'll follow up with you. Make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to do. The next sponsor I want to create and help you understand is super special. This is a Theta Tau Sigma chapter of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. This is the Northern Virginia Sigmas. This is my chapter of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and my brothers have just recently elected me the bigger and better business chairman of the fraternity, of the chapter, and I'm loving it. I'm creating more programs, creating more initiatives to uplift and really promote as many small businesses as I possibly can in the local area. There are a lot of new programs coming out, a lot of things I want you to pay attention to. So keep coming back to the channel as much as you possibly can. We're going to be doing some beautiful things. And I've been currently elected again as the chairman of the Fairfax County Small Business Commission. Our responsibility is, again, to try to close the wealth disparity gap between all the minority businesses that you could possibly think of, and make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep them engaged, to keep them presented, because here in Fairfax County, that's a $26 billion deficit in terms of the wealth gap between the poor and the elite in the county already. And we want to make sure that we close that gap, because that's going to add right back to our gross domestic product. It's going to make everything work better for everyone. And it's really an inclusive strategy, the Fairfax One strategy. And I'm looking forward to bringing more of that to the Small Business Commission this year. Also, one of our sponsors is, of course, the Northern Virginia Business Referral Roundtable. This is a networking organization that my partner Darren Marquardt and I started many years ago, and we've been doing such a great job of helping entrepreneurs and business leaders learn the strategies, learn the techniques of networking. That is my love. That is my passion, teaching entrepreneurs and business leaders how to be more effective with their relationship building strategy. And we have a phrase that we try to use all the time, that networking is the art and science of building relationships that can be mutually beneficial to all parties considered. It's not something that you do to create leverage just for yourself. It's something that you do to create leverage and uplift your entire community. That's what networking is all about, and that's how we teach it for the Roundtable. If you're interested in finding out more about the Roundtable, check us out on Meetup. Check us out on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and we definitely will be posting a lot of stuff. And again, hashtag 9-Step Guru. You'll find out everything that I'm doing here at Coach Powell Training and Development, and we're just trying to do everything we can to uplift the entrepreneurial community. Having said that, let's talk about today's topic. Today, we're getting into a series, the 5 elements of perfect presentation. We're going to be talking about each of these 5 elements, but why? Let's think about this right off the bat. Why do you want to be able to deliver a perfect presentation? Whether you are introducing yourself, or you are doing a quick 5-minute presentation, or a 10-minute, 20-minute, even an hour-long talk. Why do you want to deliver it perfectly? Why is that important? Well, here it is. The fact is, you only get one shot to make a really good impression. And when you make a really good impression, the first thing that happens is people begin to think of you, and they keep thinking of you in the way that they originally thought of you. And so if you make a really, really good first impression, and or you change an impression to make it what you need it to be. Now that new impression that you've created, that new value proposition that you've delivered, that new strategy that you've shared with somebody else, the new way you've invoked emotion and make them think of you, now they can use that as a way to create leverage within the brand that you want to share and the way you want to share it. It's critically important that you learn each of these 5 elements. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the first of the 5 elements. And before we even get into today's program, I want to make sure that you understand what the 5 elements are, because I'll be repeating these over and over again. If you learn to deliver a presentation that has all of these 5 elements in it: impact, drama, heroism, vision, and recognition. All 5 of these elements are critically important to use in any presentation that you do. If you're a professional speaker, if you want to be considered a professional anything, leader or anything, these 5 elements are critically important that you understand. Anytime you have to influence anybody, anytime you want to try to make sure that people understand where you're coming from or do what you need them to do, you want to deliver. And you want to deliver a presentation, some type of communication that's going to have all 5 of these elements: impact, drama, heroism, vision, and recognition. So if you're smart, you already know. What are we talking about? What kind of presentations have you ever heard that deliver on all 5 of those promises every single time out the box? It is always, always, always a story. Stories done well always hit all 5 of these elements. And over the course of the next 5 weeks, we're going to be talking about each of these elements. And I hope that you're hanging on to some of the things that we're sharing. If you need to know more about the 5 elements, if you want to take a really good deep dive looking at it, I would suggest that you check out the offering that we have on the site. We have posted for all of you who are interested in it, the 5 elements of perfect presentation. All you have to do is go to the comment section and you'll be able to see them all. I'm going to repost them again just in case. You know, unfortunately, if you are looking at this from LinkedIn, you're not going to be able to see the post. But I'm going to go back in later on and share that post. Now, what I'm sharing with you all is actually a document that I created called the 5 Elements of Perfect Presentation. And it goes really deeply into all of those. There's tons of exercises, tons of training, tons of examples that you could use to create your presentations, to create what you want to create. But it's very, very important that you take this seriously. Don't just do off-the-cuff presentations. Don't just stand and deliver. Unless you understand how this whole process works, then you're going to make mistakes that you don't have to make. And those mistakes are costly. Those mistakes will end up damaging your reputation, creating a negative impact, making sure that the impression that you want to share is not as good as it can be. So this is going to take, and I have to tell you, lots and lots and lots of preparation, lots of forethought, lots of research, lots of homework before you want to create a meaningful impression, a meaningful presentation for any organization and any person that you want to deliver to. Now, I am by no means a master presenter, or like in Toastmasters, we don't have a master Toastmaster, so on and so forth. But I do understand all of the reasons and the research that goes behind all of the kinds of presentations that you want to give. I suggest that if presenting yourself and presenting ideas that you want to share with others is something that you just innately are afraid of, then you do something about it. Don't just sit on it. Don't just accept, well, I don't want to present, and so therefore. You don't have a choice. If you need to be a leader, if you need to be influential, you have to learn these techniques. I can't explain it to you any further than that or get into it any deeper than that. There's just so many reasons why you have to. If you're going to be a leader, if you're even going to be on a team, you have to learn to present your ideas in a way that people are going to find acceptable. They're going to remember it. They're going to like it, enjoy it, participate in it, and engage with you. If you can't do this, then it's really going to be, you're going to make it really difficult for yourself. Okay, so let's get into it. Today's topic is really all about impact. Everything you say, every gesture, every illustration, everything you share in any type of presentation that you want to do has to have impact. It has to be able to hit people right squarely in their attention, development area in their brain. You want to make sure that you get their attention. That is the purpose of impact. That is all that is there to make sure you get and you keep their attention. Now, once you get their attention, you've got to do something good with it. You can't just get your audience's attention or a person's attention and then blow it off as in something, that you could just do something with. So it's easy to be sort of gimmicky and get somebody's attention. It's easy to do something, make a big thunderous noise or a loud, do something kind of quirky or off kilter, and you will get people's attention. But what do you do with it after that? Now, I'm going to suggest there's a couple things that really, really create impact. And there's some ideas that I want to share with you that are so important that you just can't do without. All right. So first of all, let's think about what impact is. Jackie Robinson says, a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. I'm a big believer in that thought process. I'm a big believer that everything that we are here to do is already imprinted in our DNA. It's already imprinted in our spirit. It's already imprinted in how we walk through life. It is our job to understand that imprint, that destiny, that future that we have, and then to be able to share it with others using the language, the culture, the expressions that we can to make sure we transfer that purpose, that reason, that dictate who we are and where we're going. Dr. Maulana Karenga teaches in Kwanzaa the theory that he learned from Frantz Fanon, which is called the Kawaida theory. The Kawaida theory asks and answers the three most important questions that anyone could ever ask any of themselves. First, who am I? Second, am I all that I say I am? Third, am I all that I ought to be? If in your presentation style, you've learned to wrestle with these questions and then share the answers to these questions, you're going to immediately develop the kind of trust that is needed to get whatever you want from the universe, from the people that you're speaking with, from the environment that you're around, because you're creating safety. You're creating transparency. You're creating, just from your being, your presence alone is a high level, executive level presence. It's something that you can depend on, right? Because it's important that you're not just memorable, right? You don't want to be gimmicky. You don't want to be, just jumping up and down, doing crazy stuff, right? You want to do things that invite people into a new reality. You want to invite your audience, the people that you're sharing with, people that you're talking to, into a new reality, which means you have to have some forethought. If you think about it, if you're asking somebody to take a trip with you, you're asking somebody to go somewhere with you, you have to tell them where the destination is, right? You have to tell them where you're going. You have to tell them what the benefits are of going with you on this trip and what the benefits might be when you finally arrive at your destination. Because the better you are at doing that, the more excited they're going to get about taking the trip with you. They're going to want to suspend some of the things they've already got going, some of the things they've already thought about or getting themselves into to go with you on the trip, go with you on this journey. I want you to think of every presentation you do as a journey that you're taking everyone else with you on. And in doing that, and going on this journey with you, the end result, the benefits that are going to be received along the way and at the end of the journey will be well worth the attention they're giving you and the time they're going to invest in you and with you in order to receive the benefits that they want to receive. So it's a couple key tricks. I hate to call them tricks, because if I call them tricks, you think that they're just manipulation tactics or manipulation techniques, and they're not. They're influential and influence-based techniques and tactics. And influence is something that you should do thoughtfully, with mindfulness and an understanding of who the people are that you're talking to, so that you can create not just drama. We're going to talk about that too, but you can create an energy around everything that you do that drives passion, power, and delivers on the promises that people hope for in hearing and listening and engaging with you in your presentation. So let's just get into it. If you got the download in front of you, I would like for you to open it up and go ahead and turn right away to page 3. There's a couple key elements that you have to remember when you're trying to deliver a presentation that has impact. First, it needs to be memorable. Can't say that enough. Whatever you say and do has to be something that's memorable to others, which means it has to be easy, right? It has to be simple. You can't use a lot of complex language. It's got to be something that's going to be easy to replicate, because you don't just want to be remembered. You want people to spread the news. You want people to spread the message to people inside their network and people that they know and people who can and then add to the message themselves and grow from it and grow with it and grow through it. And so in that case, you want to make sure that the message that you deliver is one that sticks. It's one that can go viral. Right? It's got to be simple enough for that. It can't be something complicated that requires you to deliver it. Because if it requires you to deliver it, then that means the work you're going to have to do is going to be you running around delivering this message to every place you want it to go within your target market or sphere of influence, so to speak, right? You don't want that. You want the message itself to travel without somebody having to click on something, without somebody having to show something, or somebody having to give a booklet or a presentation. You want the message to be so simple that people can deliver it themselves. Now, it's got to be memorable and it's got to be simple. Very, very important. The next thing that has to happen in your presentation is it has to be compelling. It has to invoke feelings that will then help people take action. And so if you think about it, begin with the action that you want to have somebody to share. Like if you want somebody to do something, right? And guess what? Every role that people can play for you means there's something different they can do. If you want people to buy from you, that's an action. You want them to pull out their wallet, their credit card, and you want them to make a transaction happen. That's a different action. If you want somebody to refer you, they have to go into their database, go into their websites, go into their information, wherever they gather information about the people they know, and then be willing to share you with those people or share those people with you, right? And they have to do it in a meaningful, powerful way. That's a referral. Different, right? Different action than buying a product or service. If you want them to support you, meaning you want them to finance you, or you want them to introduce you to somebody who can finance your program, your product, or give you something of a quality type of value that you can leverage for something else or create something else, then that's a different type of, that's a support. And what action that person needs to take in order to support you is different than the action they need to take to refer you, different than the action they need to take to buy from you. And then there's people who are just your stakeholders. Your stakeholders are the people who receive the benefits that you provide. Now, the action required to receive the benefits that you require is indeed another action. So your stakeholders might be your clients. They also might be your advisory council. They also might be the members of board of directors, people that you work with. They might be your staff. They might be the people that are working with you, your joint venture partners. They could be a whole lot of other people, but they all are trying to receive the benefits that come from being a part of your inner circle or working with you or helping you to create the magic that you're trying to create. And so if you think about every one of these roles, whether they're a sales partner, a stakeholder, a referral source, or even some type of collaborating partner, every action that you want them to take is different. And so you have to ask yourself the questions in your presentation. What are the actions that I want my partners to take, or the people the target audience that I'm talking to, the people that I want to speak to? What actions do I want them to take? And then you have to do some backwards planning from there. You have to ask yourself, what emotions What feelings do I need them to feel in order to take those actions? Now, I told you, trust is the ultimate feeling for all of what we're trying to say. However, trust comes in different ways to different people at different times, and they depend on what action that you wanted me to take. For instance, if I want to buy from you, I have to trust you enough to want to pull out my wallet, my credit card, sit down with you, and purchase your product. Now, getting to that moment where I want to purchase your product might take a lot of distance. And we might, from the moment I just meet you to the time where I say, yes, I want to buy your product, there might be several steps that must be taken. And guess what? I know those steps better than you, unless you've done your homework and you already know who I am and what I want. And then you could pretty much craft a message, craft a strategy, craft a presentation that's going to blow me away. It's going to make me do exactly what I just described. Now, the information that I would need in order to buy from you is different than the information that I need in order to refer you. That's a different level of trust, because now I'm not making an independent decision for myself or my family. I'm making a decision for someone else, And I may need to have more information to decide, in fact, it might even be different information, not even more information, but different information if I'm going to decide to refer you. And I need different information still if I'm going to decide to invest in you or help you to find people who will invest in you, whether I'm investing time, talent, or treasure. All these things require different presentations, different timing, different rhythm, different abilities, and you cannot speak to everyone the same way. I see it all the time. People want different things, but they tend to say the same things all the time to the same people, And I'm like, wait a minute. If you want people to refer you, you have to speak differently. If you want people to buy from you, you have to speak differently. If you want people to just fall in love with you and get to know you, you have to speak differently. No matter what you want, think about the action that you want people to take. Think about the feelings that they're going to need to have in order to be comfortable taking those actions, and make sure your presentation is one that delivers on that emotional content very, very well. And again, like I already said, I let the cat out of the bag already. The best emotional content, the best way to deliver emotional content is through story. And over the next 5 weeks, we're going to tell you how to put together the most passionate, the most meaningful, the most memorable stories that you could ever imagine. Every story starts with character development. Now, that's a simple, very simple story, right? But if I give you a story that's different, that may start with something other than character development, what's happening in that situation is I'm giving you a story that's almost like think about a Quentin Tarantino movie. If you think about a Quentin Tarantino movie, or some of the other more interesting directors who put together programs and stories, what happens is they chop the story, the typical storyline, the typical hero storyline up into different segments, and they make you wait to know who actually is the hero in this particular story, right? Who actually is the person that we're talking about? What was the characters? And you don't necessarily get to see their characters until the story's already developed to a certain level. It's very confusing, but it's also interesting at the same time. Trust me, though, and even in a Quentin Tarantino film, all the elements of the story is there. All the elements of a great story are there. It's just that they're presented in different timing. So that makes you gather a different kind of interest than you would get in a traditional story. But we're going to talk about the traditional methods. First, master that. That's my opinion. Master the traditional storytelling format, and then if you can customize it to make it your own, to tweak it so that you can really, really give some shock and awe to your audience, I'm like all for it. But master the basics first. Don't go crazy with creating all kinds of presentations and all kinds of ideas that are not masterful. I got to share some stuff with you because I know one of my buddies, Eugene, is on the call with us today. And Eugene Campbell, who is a certified business coach, is one of my favorite people in the world. And he has this to add to the conversation. Eugene says, for the influence, impressions count. Adhering to your corporate design will elevate your presentation to a higher, more professional level, but make it simple at the same time to be understood. That is so important, Gene. I thank you so much for throwing that into the conversation. It matters a great deal for people who want to consider themselves professional to think about it through exactly the lens that you just explained. Thank you so very much for co-signing on that idea for me. I really appreciate you, brother. So let's talk about what it means and what it says when you're trying to deliver a presentation that has the kind of meaningful impact that we're talking about. The first thing you have to do with these presentations, you have to develop a character. Because there needs to be someone in your story for us to fall in love with. I'm going to tell you, if at the end you want people to do something for you and it's about you, it shouldn't be your story. It shouldn't be you talking about you. And there's a reason for that. Because what you can say about you, even if you tell a masterful story, it's going to sound selfish and self-promoting. And you don't want to do that. You want to tell a story about how you might have helped someone else discover something great or do something great. And in that way, you're talking about them. The character you want to develop is a character that's not you. I take you back again to some of the greatest directors and storytellers of all time. They don't put themselves in the story. The story is not about them. Even if the story is about them, it's a fictional character representing an idea of them. So it's okay that the story that you're about to tell, for any reason, whether in your presentation, is not you specific or your company specific. Make it about a character. Make it about somebody that your audience can immediately relate to. If I'm talking to a bunch of CEOs, I'm going to tell a story about a CEO and the problems that CEO had. And I'm going to make them cry if I can about how deep the problem is for this CEO, how difficult it was for, first of all, the board of directors made the decision to choose them as the CEO for the company, right? That's a difficult situation. If you've ever been through that situation, you ever had to be, on the crucible in the gauntlet trying to figure out how you're going to get chosen or picked to be the CEO of a company or a nonprofit organization, I promise you it is not an easy thing. And it's a harrowing process, especially if it's done well, because that means you're going to have at least 4 to 5 interviews, at least, from different perspectives and different positions and different areas. And they're going to compare notes and talk about you behind your back. And you're going to have to figure out, were you impressive or not? Did you give enough messages, enough ways, enough things that people will look at and see? There's lots of presentation that has to be done if you're trying to interview for that position. Even if you are the founder of your own company, to stay there, you've got to be impressive. You got to be impressive to your board of directors, your advisors, your counselors, people that you work with, suppliers, other venture partners. You have to win them. You have to win their hearts and minds. So you can't do it by always presenting you as the solution to their problem. Sometimes you have to let them know that you understand the varying solutions to the problem. And you have to present other characters that will indicate a familiarity to you with the information, with the details that are important. So when it comes to character development in your story, don't make the character you. There's a time and place for that, but it's usually not when you're trying to influence somebody to do something that you want them to do. If you want them to feel for you, then you tell that personal story. But if you want them to feel for your expertise and the quality of your company or what you bring to the table, you need to tell a story that's involving a client or somebody else that they've done some work for that will help them tell the story about themselves, actually, that they can never tell by talking about themselves directly. And what do I mean by that? Let's just understand that if you are talking about you, there's certain things you have to hold back. No matter how great you are, you cannot stand in a pulpit or on top of a mountain and say, I'm the greatest thing since sliced cheese, even if it's true. You can't do it. If you try to get away with that, what's going to happen is people are going to say, well, that's kind of selfish and that's kind of self-aggrandizing. And that's really not what I'm interested in, or blah, blah, blah. I didn't come here to hear about how wonderful you are. I want to hear about this program or this process or this idea or this concept. I want to hear about that. And, you telling me how great you are doesn't help me get there. Right. It doesn't even help me trust you, because who do you trust that says, talks about them all the time? So you need to make sure that you bring in what we call third party influence. Right? The story that you present needs to be about somebody else. Steven Spielberg does not put himself in the E.T. story. E.T. is E.T. Right? Or any other a director or Hollywood producer, whatever. Again, you don't see them in the story. The story is another character, another group. Now they can tell, they can make it as fantastical or as amazing as they possibly can, because who's in the story, the people that the audience identifying with, is a fictional character, is a person or a character that has a true to life, something about them is true to life, but their situation, the background, whatever, that can all be fictional. That can all be made up. None of it has to ring true, because what you're trying to appeal to is emotional content, not actual factual dialogue and content. Emotional content is what you're trying to do. So if you want your stories to have impact, make them about somebody other than you. Make them about a character who could be larger than life, in experience, but really, really personal to the people, to the audience that are hearing it. So a good example I would give you, like I said, if I'm talking to a bunch of CEOs, I would talk about a CEO who had a problem. I wouldn't talk about, to a group of CEOs, I wouldn't talk about anybody else that they can't relate to. I would talk about people that they can absolutely relate to. And make sure that when you're talking about your target audience, you want them to be able to see themselves in the story you're telling. If they can't relate to the audience, relate to the character that you're developing, you got a problem. Now, how do you make sure they're relating to the character? First of all, you have to give them enough demographic information that they can imagine who this person is. You can't just say this person's title. This person is a CEO of a company. You got to give me more than that. You got to give me their age. You got to give me where they live. You got to give me, how long they might have been the CEO of the company. You got to give me information about what kind of company it is and what the company is responsible for. You got to give me an idea about what the size of the company might be. You got to give me what I call demographic description of the character. So here's what happens when you give somebody a demographic description of a character. When you give somebody a demographic description, they begin to run through their mental Rolodex about people that they already know who fit that demographic. Even if the person that they're thinking about is themselves, they're going to actually think about themselves and other people that they know who fit that demographic. And so I've heard, like a chiropractor may say, have you ever noticed how elderly people sometimes, when they get up, when they move out of a chair, and they do this rocking motion, to get themselves going, right? And then they try to stabilize themselves and make sure that they get up slowly, right? And to get enough momentum to move up slowly, but it's always this grunt and this groan, and maybe you hear the cracking and creaking of the bones and stuff as they get up. And it's like, it looks like a painful process to get them from a seated position to a standing position. You ever notice that? You ever notice the sounds they make, the sounds their bodies make, and the sounds they make? You hear the groaning and the grunting and the struggling. You ever hear that? Right now, what I just did for all of you all is I gave you a demographic description of what it looks like to have an elderly person go from a seated to a standing position. And you cannot help it, but you went through the mental Rolodex that you have to realize and experience anytime you've ever seen that happen before, and you thought of a person. That person could have been yourself, but that person could have been somebody other than yourself. If you haven't seen the problem or had to have the problem, then you've maybe seen somebody else have it. And now I got your attention, right? This is what good character description does. Demographic description, things that people can see, are the way that you do a demographic description. You need 3 to 5 demographic descriptions in your character development of any story that you're going to tell, so that we can identify the character. Now, it's not important that we just identify with the character or that we feel a connection to the character. We now have to fall in love with the character. That same chiropractor may go, these elderly people, this elderly person I'm talking about, Jonathan, who's 72 years old, has been struggling with this basic ability to mobility ability to get up for the last decade of his life. So much so that he can't imagine moving forward in his life and continue to feel worse and worse and worse every time he has to stand up, every time he has to move around. You know, it's daunting to him, and it's becoming real to him because his life is spent in mobility. He needs to get up and move for his career. He needs to get up and move to be a member of his community, to get up and be around other people. He needs to be able to get up and not make it difficult for himself. Can you imagine what it would be like if somebody said to Jonathan in his job, Jonathan, we need you to go over to this office and make transportation from here to there and just do a lot of moving, or we're going to have to, start thinking about how to put together your retirement package. Maybe Jonathan can't afford to retire. So he's stuck with this situation where he's got to be able to get around and move. He's got to be able to do this, or he's got to lose his job, and whatever economic empowerment that meant to him could possibly go bye-bye. Could you imagine what it must feel like to be Jonathan? And see, if you are doing a good job in demographic description of the character, what you've done now is you've allowed people to feel for the character that you just presented. They can think about a person's by name, they can think about their age, they think about where they live, they can think about the experience that person is having, and they can feel for that experience. They can have empathy for that person. But that empathy, you're really creating a moment. You're really creating an experience with that empathy. You can imagine poor Jonathan stuck between a rock and a hard place, not knowing what to do, only imagining the worst that could possibly happen to him, and you could feel for that moment if that person is telling that story correctly. That same chiropractor might say, okay, how would you like to know how chiropractic solutions could work for a person like Jonathan? And then ask that open-ended question after you've already given that demographic description, after you've already made that person identify somebody in their mind, went through their mental Rolodex, and then said something very, very specific that's going to be meaningful to the listening audience. Can you imagine how powerful that's going to be? I want you to think about this. I'm going to take a quick break, and I want you to think about creating a demographic description of people that you want to influence. And I'm going to come back after the break and share with you some of the results of mine. Be right back in just a couple seconds. Okay, folks, I hope you're with me. When you think about, I just left before the break, we talked about coming up with your own demographic descriptions of your target audience, so that when you deliver a message, you're delivering that message powerfully, you're delivering that message in a way that you can grab people's attention, and you can get their empathy, you can get them sympathizing with the character that you develop. I hope you came up with some good stuff. If you did, and you want to share what you came up with in terms of your target audience, do me a favor, put it in the chat. I just described to you about how a chiropractor may share what their demographic audience is in a story by illustrating a person who had a hard time with mobility, right? Now, I'm a business coach. My job is to make sure that individuals that I work with have the proper tools and techniques they need to motivate themselves and others, right? To create high performance from themselves and others, and how to make sure that that performance is focused and that performance comes with enough energy to make it happen. That's my responsibility, right? So I can't have people feeling lethargic. I can't have people feeling like they aren't capable of doing the thing that they want to do, or they're not going to deliver their highest performance in the moment. So when I describe my clients, when I describe my customers, if I give a demographic description of a person that's perfect for me, I may say something like this. Could you imagine how it feels to be a medical professional in the universe, in the world, for 10 years or more, but still having to pay back over $500,000 of student loans on top of all the fees and all the equipment and all the loans and all the debt that a person has to incur, a young professional has to incur to just be a part of this field? I mean, I know doctors to this day that are over $500,000 in debt. And that's before you consider a mortgage they may have or a car loan they may have. They're just in debt for their business. They're in debt for their student loans and the things that help them even become and be a professional medical doctor. Now, these people can't do things like take amazing vacations and go places with their families. And if they do it, they're putting extra pressure and extra stress on themselves and the finances of their organization and their companies. Jonathan was no different. He was 40 years old. He started his medical practice right here in Fairfax. When I met him for the first time, he was about $500,000 in debt. He was losing his mind because he couldn't see, one, how he's going to deal with that debt and still have the life that he imagined he might have when he first started thinking about becoming a doctor. I told Jonathan, well, Jonathan, the solutions that are in front of you are real simple solutions. But you got to be willing to really bite the bullet and deal with the responsibility and the actions that need to be taken to resolve it for yourself, and to invite other people to join in with you in that responsibility. Are you willing to do that, Jonathan? His answer was yes. So if you understand that demographic description, what I just gave you was an idea of a professional who basically, like most professionals, have incurred a significant debt or a significant investment in becoming a professional. Whether they're certified or they have a license to do whatever they do, all of that is there. But I described the medical professional. Now, if you run through your mental Rolodex, you start thinking about, who do I know who's a medical professional? In fact, who do I know that's a professional in debt? Who do I know that's a professional that lives in Fairfax? Who do I know that's a professional of 45? That's 45, right? And you start running through those same mental Rolodex, and you realize that most professionals that you know have this problem. And if I did a great job with my demographic description, what I just did was infect you with an idea. I've helped you, invited you into discovering and learning about a person and their situation. I could have gone on to say Jonathan's been married for the last 5 years. He's got 2 small children. Has no clue how he's going to put those kids through college. And his wife is looking at him like, you know what? I thought I married a doctor, and I can't spend any time with you. You're so busy trying to make ends meet and do the things that you need to do. This is not fun for me. I'm not enjoying this anymore. This is not the life that I thought I was going to have when I got together with you. We're going to have to figure out something different. So he's got stress everywhere, right? Stress from home, stress from the business, stress from life. And he's wondering, maybe I should just go get a traditional 9-to-5 somewhere and see if I can't make something different happen. Although he loves what he does. You see how you can easily give a demographic description of your perfect client by just talking about their situation, talk about the problems they may have, the problems they may be facing, not asking people whether they feel this way or they feel that way. Just describe what you already know about your target audience and try to be as specific as possible. Don't be afraid to give people a specific example of a specific client that you love working with, right? Because when you do this, what happens is people can go through their mental Rolodex and come up with somebody that meets the specifics, but they also will do it for people who meet the general. They'll go, oh, I see you work with medical professionals. Do you work with CPAs as well? Lawyers as well? Well, the answer is yes, right? But don't say to people, well, I work with every professional who have a license. That's not going to help you, because that's going to make them think of nobody in specific. That's going to make them go broad, right? And what you want to do is be very specific in how you describe and how you create a character. And a character has these specific details. It is very, very important that you share these specific details, because the more you share the specific details, the more your audience is going to connect with the character. If your audience doesn't connect with the character, because the character is broad and nebulous and very difficult to find a moment inside their brain to work with that person in that fictitious world that it was called their brain, right? That you're thinking about, then you're not taking advantage of all the neuroscience. And I'm going to describe this to you in great detail a little bit later, but let me just give you a hint. The world that you want to create every time you give a presentation is the world that's within the brains and the audience, the brains of the audience that you're trying to talk to, that you're trying to create the moment and the experience with. And the experience, the feelings are created in the brain. And you need two kinds of stimuluses to make that experience exactly what you hope it might be. And the first is that visual content, right? You need to draw them, you need to help them imagine a person, imagine a scene, imagine a scenario by which this character that you're describing will be involved in. If they can't imagine that, they can't see it, then they don't have the context they need to create the emotions that you want to try to create. Now they also have to have some past experience that helps them to draw that connection as well. So the past experience, along with the imagery that you're providing, is going to make them feel the content and feel connected to the content that you're sharing, whether that's visually, verbally, if it's in writing, whatever, it's still the same. Your brain experiences all that information the same way, right? So you want to make sure that as you're telling a story, as you're creating a character, that you're using the previous experience of the audience, right, as well as giving them imagery that you want to share with them. Well, now, what happens if the audience has no previous experience? Meaning you're talking to people who never had to deal with professionals. In the case that I just shared with you, they never had the experience. They don't know any professionals. They don't know any licensed professionals. You're talking to the wrong audience. You haven't done your audience analysis. You haven't done analysis of who they are. And so because they can't connect to the character that you're creating, then your message is not going to have the powerful impact it needs to have to land in the way that it should land. There's so much information to share about messages that have a powerful impact, starting with the character. But again, you also have to ask, what do you want people to do for you? And then what feelings do they need to have in order to do the thing, and in order to feel as comfortable as they can to do the thing that you want them to do. So if I'm talking to a referral source, I'm not telling that same story. I'm going to tell them a story about a referral source, right? Another professional who referred me to another professional. And I'm going to tell them a story that relates to how that worked out. If I'm talking to an investment banker or somebody that I want to invest in my process or service, I'm going to talk to them about how an investment banker invested in a product or process very similar to mine and how that worked for them, right? If I'm talking to a supporter, maybe I want somebody, a blogger or a media person to represent me in their media information. I'm going to talk to them about how phenomenal the results were for another blogger who found somebody similar to me, but not me, right? And the story of how somebody else was, how it worked for them and how great it meant, how it felt to them to make it happen. Bottom line, you have to answer the question to the people that you're talking to, what's in it for me? If I'm the referral source, you better tell it what's in it for me. If I'm the person that you want to sell to, you better tell me what's in it for me. If I'm the person that you want to develop support from, you want to tell me what's in it for me. Don't tell me about how wonderful the product or service it is. Don't tell me how wonderful you are. I don't care. If I'm the audience, I want to know what the benefit is for me to first even listen to you in the first place. And secondly, after I listen to you and I take the action that you want me to take, I need to know what the benefits are. And if you haven't done that work, if you haven't figured that out, how to craft those messages that indicate that information clearly, succinctly, and simply, you fail in your presentation. You fail, you fail, you fail. Not only am I going to be bored, I'm going to be disinterested. I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I might even be offended that you wasted my time. And that is how everyone in your audience is going to feel, except the people who heard you, who already love you, who know what you want and can figure out how to put the pieces together, even if you don't deliver them well. But that's going to happen sometimes. And that might even lure you into a false sense of security that you don't have to practice. You don't have to put together a professional presentation. You don't have to really think through all the dialogue information that we're going to give you in the next couple of weeks. But understand, and I can't say this any more plainly than this. If you do not start with good character development and a wonderful imaginative story in every presentation or any presentation that you're allowed to do, you are missing the opportunity to engage your audience, to make what you're saying memorable, to create a moment of magic where people feel safe and comfortable in just letting down their barriers and experiencing what you have to share, fully immersing themselves into your content, into the things that you want to try to do. If you miss that opportunity, I'm sorry for you. I feel sorry for you. And I don't want you to have to miss that opportunity. So do your homework. Take a look at the 5 elements of perfect presentation. Do the exercises that are there, especially those exercises about how to develop impact. If this is something that you seriously want to do, I invite you, join with me. Come back next week. Share what you're hearing, what you're learning with somebody else. Because the best news is news that you're willing to spread, news that you're willing to share with other people. Don't keep this a secret. Don't just like the program, share it with other people. It's going to be copied, it's going to be reviewed and all that kind of stuff. And again, this has been an amazing opportunity. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the chat. If you have something that you want to add, again, feel free to hit me up in the chat. I thank you all for coming on board, for following along, for playing along with me. I had a great time. We're headed on about an hour now. And again, I want to thank again my sponsors, the Blacks in Government, the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce, the Theta Tau Sigma Chapter of Phi Beta Sigma, the Small Business Commission of the County of Fairfax, and all the other friends and family and close, intimate circle members who follow the show and participate and engage. You are my heroes. You are the wind beneath my wings. I could not have done without you. Just like my friend Darren taught us, I could not. It could not have been without you. And I leave you with the following words. Domo arigato. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the time.